Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on tools and techniques of process analysis and improvement. Our presenter, Joseph McAuliffe, is sitting here and he's just ready to go. But I'm just going to talk you through a couple of things that could be useful towards the end of the webinar and also as you're listening for how you can interact with us. The slides that you see, as well as the entire recording of the webinar, will be shared with you in an email, in a follow-up email that we ask that you allow up to a week to arrive. They will be on our SlideShare page and our YouTube channel. At the end of the webinar, you'll see a survey that will pop up, and I just ask that you give us a few minutes of your time just to give us some feedback so that we know how we're doing and what we could do better. As you're listening to Joseph speaking, you might have some questions. If you look at the bottom right of your control panel, you'll see a questions box, and this is where you can interact with us. Please type your questions in there, and Joseph will allocate time towards the end to answer them. So, having said all that, I will now hand you over to Joseph. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Sherry. Hello, everybody. My name is Joseph McAuliffe. I'll give you a very quick introduction who I am and where I come from. I come from a company called BEAT, Business Excellence in Achieving Transformation. And as the name should suggest, we normally focus our operational activities into looking into organizations and helping them, turning them around, making them operate in more efficient, more effective manners. We are based in Malta and we have an office in Dubai, and we do work both in Europe and the Middle East region. We get to learn quite a lot of new experiences with every client that we work with. And basically what we try to do is also share this knowledge with people like you who are interested in the subjects, so that we can maybe share, learn, and even start up discussions if need be between us and within your colleagues, and maybe start taking things a bit forward and discussing. Today's subject is addressing basically part of our work that we do when we are working with our clients. Basically, like any other industry, when you are trying to make something happen, you normally need some kind of tools. The same in management. When we talk about management, we need to have a set of tools that we can use so that it will help us to maneuver our decisions. So when we look into organizations, we consider organizations to be very much like any process that you would imagine. So immaterial of the sector that we are in, immaterial of the type of industry in the country you are, the regulatory elements that control your processes, we look at operations in a process perspective, where basically, as you might well know, it's an activity that converts inputs into outputs using the right resources through a sequence of activities and logical business rules, operating within some kind of control mechanism, be it finance, funding, regulatory, legal influences. In order for us to know how well we are performing in our process, a key element is measurement, because without measurement, without having factual results telling us how well we are performing, how can we improve? Today's topic talks about improvement, and to actually implement improvement, what we will focus today is about the tools that are available to management to help us analyze the processes that we are managing. What would help would be if we could know a bit the audience listening out there, what kind of role you occupy within your industry, within your business. So we're going to put up a very simple poll to tell us basically what is your role in your organization. Are you an analyst? Is your main responsibility analyzing process performances? Or are you decision makers? Are you managers? Do you act based on the outcome from the analysis provided to you by your people? Okay. So it would be interesting to see the kind of audience we have out there. Okay, so we'll just give you some time to give us that feedback. It will help us a lot into guiding this conversation. Right. While you are busy polling there, we'll give you a minute or two to do that. Moving on with the subject, when we talk about process improvement, we are really talking about making things better. Okay, and making things better means acting on the current situation, learning from it, and doing things to make it better. Okay. Therefore, if we look at the process improvement blueprint that we normally put in very simplistically, is that you currently might be operating under some scenarios that might have been created throughout a period of time, throughout experiences, evolved across by business development that came through along the years. It will definitely be delivering results in that if there is no result, there is no growth, and therefore there would be no reason for you to increase the business activities. The only risk is that as we evolve, as we make our business grow gradually, sometimes we might tend to overcomplicate matters and make them a bit more messy than they should be. The target of achieving improvement is to look at our processes, our current state process, and by using common sense most of the time, by using logic, by challenging, by using our own experiences that we might have gained across the years, across the time that we would have operated, and using the appropriate tools, some of which we'll be discussing in a few minutes, we will come out with something that hopefully is better than what we have at this very moment. That is the basic concept, right? So having a toolbox, a tool set that we can use is fundamental. Just like you would in your workshop, you might have all sorts of different tools. Yeah, I mean, if you are like me, I am a technical person, so every time I need to go buy some fittings from the store, from the DIY store, what do? I buy my fittings and very probably, I end up buying that extra tool that looks so nice on the shelf that I must have in my garage. Yeah. So what happens? I rig up my workshop with all sorts of different tools. Do I have the right tools? Do I use all those tools? Do I use the tools in the appropriate fashion? Okay. Tools are there to help us achieve outcomes. Use the right tool to do the job and do the job well. Use the tool wrongly and it can hurt you. The same with management practices. Okay. We will discover a number of tools, some of which, if used well, can be very powerful. If used wrongly, however, they can lead us down to take the wrong decisions. For example, if we are analyzing data and that data, we do not analyze it with an unbiased tool, if we put in any bias into our analysis, the outcome from that analysis is probably not as factual as we would like it to be. If we are going to take any decisions based on that outcome, the chances are that we're going to take a biased decision, which is not possibly the correct decision. And therefore, a point of alert is please let us use the right tools for the right purpose. Tools are fantastic. Having all the tool set in your workshop is fantastic. But if you don't have the right knowledge, the skill to maximize on those tools, then those tools are next to worthless. Okay, so we might have the best tools available, but unless we use our common sense, our logic, our expertise, and our experience, which can be unmatched against any sophisticated tool, then we are not working on a very effective mechanism whereby we are utilizing our expertise and our knowledge in conjunction with the tool sets that we have been provided with to obtain an improved process after elaborate exercises on our current processes. Right. When we analyze processes, we like analyzing processes in different scenarios. And what I have tried to do this afternoon is to try categorize different kinds of tools that are available to us and try to match them to what best analysis they are fitting. For example, one of the important elements to consider when we are analyzing processes is the business environment, the operating environment. Analyzing processes within a manufacturing sector has its own environment. Analyzing processes within a banking sector, it's a different environment. A pharmaceutical, a healthcare sector, they all have their own dedicated environments. Okay, so even if it's not just the industry sector, it could be the culture we operate in, yes, the geographical location we operate in. Right, so what we have tried to do here is to compile high-level tools that can be utilized by analysts who are into analyzing the business environment. From the polls I see here, it appears that most of the audience listening to us today is coming from the analyst type. So that helps a lot because we know that most of you people out there are probably users of these tools. But it is also important for the management people, the decision makers, to know and have a good appreciation of what tools exist out there so that you can facilitate, provide, and be on the same wavelength when you're discussing analytics with your analysts. So, going through the tools very, very quickly, the intention again here is not to make you experts at using the tool, but more than anything, raising the awareness that, listen guys, these tools are there available for you. You might not have them, you might not be utilizing them today. How about knowing about them? And if you think that they come in handy, search them up, look them up, or even better, attend one of our courses organized by Informa where we discuss these tools in greater detail. Right, so one of the first basic tools that I always remind clients about are simple surveys. Sometimes we tend to forget about the good old classical simple approaches that were more common a few years back. Holding a very simple survey could render pretty good indicative results that will start you off looking into which direction you want to focus your attention. Okay, so please, when we talk about surveys, you can make surveys as complicated as you want. Let's bear in mind, today everybody is busy, everybody claims have no time, so receiving a survey with 150 questions might not be the exact good idea. But if you raise a survey with maybe a handful of questions which are direct to answer, yes, no, yes, or maybe rated from 1 to 5, something simple that people, it will take them, it's almost like a game for people, yes? It will take them a few seconds, a minute or two, just to tick the boxes or click the icons on their screens. Okay, surveys can give you high-level indication and at least coarsely guide you into which direction you want to take your analysis. Another tool which is very powerful and useful is the classical benchmarking. We all try to do things better, but how well do we do it compared with the rest of the industry? I'll tell you a little story coming from many years ago when I joined an organization I used to work for, possibly maybe 20 years ago or so. I was in the electronics industry, and one of my first tasks, I was responsible for quality, and one of my first tasks was to improve the quality of one of our semi-automated processes. This process, at that time, wasn't a very high technology process, and operations had no idea how good or how bad it operated. It was a very simple regime applied at that time, whereby there was a pool of people who were inspecting out the defects to control the quality going out of this activity. One of my first missions was to start measuring the process to at least get an idea of how good or bad it was. And I got a number behind this process. I managed to find a way how to measure it, implemented that, and got a number. To cut a very long story short, the number I got was something like 3,000 DPM, 3,000 defects per million. So if you can imagine, out of every million error opportunities, there were actually 3,000 errors, which was a number. We did not know whether it was 1, 10, 100, or 1,000. We got a number, 3,000. We got all our engineers together and all our process experts together to put their brains behind it. And after months of experimentation, testing, re-engineering of the process and everything, we actually managed to bring that down to something like 1,300 DPM. As you can imagine, I went straight to my boss, and knocked on his office door. And I said to him, "Look, boss, it was 3,000 7 months ago. We managed to bring it down to 1,300 DPM. I thought I was going to become the best guy in there, get a badge for that." The boss told me, "Are you sure about that number?" I said, "Yes, of course I'm sure about this number. Yeah, we've got a whole team working on this." He said, "Are you sure that's the number you want to tell me?" I said, "Of course I know. I'm sure." So go back and do your homework, he says to me. So I did that. I knew he was up to something. So I did some more research. At a point in time, I was feeling rather dismayed because I thought we actually did a very good job bringing the defect rate from 3,000 down to 1,300, thereabout. Some further research indicated that the benchmark for that kind of process with that kind of technology was something in the order of 100 defects per million. So you can imagine that myself and my team realized that we had a long way to go. Yeah, we thought we did a fantastic job when in fact we were still miles away from what the other industries do. Yeah, so it's very important to benchmark and know the best practice organizations, what they do, how do they do it. Let us learn from them, let us adapt to our situations, and we go ahead and implement. Right, another important tool that we sometimes tend to forget is people have different experiences. Get them together, get them to talk to each other. Set up roundtable discussions, talk to people, share your opinions, get them to discuss their ideas. Some ideas might not be realistic to achieve as stated by one of the team members, but maybe it might instill a thought process into someone else's brains to come up with a tangent to that idea and really come up with a potential solution. So let us not forget that talking to people, sharing ideas, putting heads together can reveal a good number of opportunities for improvement. Right, another thing that we need to compare with other industries. What is our competitive advantage? Why are we in the business? Why should clients come to us and not to our competition? So doing a thorough competitive advantage analysis helps us identify where we stand compared with the industry, compared with competition. Why do people come to us? Why should they come to us after all? In doing this, we need to identify what we're good at. And the SWOT analysis comes in very handy, whereby we can, again, through discussions, through roundtable forum with our teams, yes, extract what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, yeah, what our threats are, and what can we take advantage of, what are our opportunities. I'm sure most of you are very familiar with SWOT analysis. Another technique used is the Pestle Analysis, where with the Pestle Analysis, rather than focus on our strengths and weaknesses and threats, like we would in SWOT, we would focus on other elements. We would focus on the political aspect, political with the big P, political with the small p. What are the internal politics of this organization? What can we do? What can't we do? What are the real politics, the big P politics? Does it make sense to set up shop in this country where politics do not allow us to operate effectively? Would it make sense to set up in a country which is economically unstable? So we look at the economical aspect, the social aspect. How is society in our environment? Technology, do we have the right technologies? Can we invest in the right technologies? Is our technology out of date? The environmental aspect. Environment as in the physical environment, temperature, humidity, lighting conditions, physical environment, but also the social environment, yeah, internal issues between people, the softer side of the environment. And of course, we need to look at the legal frameworks. Operating in this industry, operating in this country, operating in this kind of sector, am I backed up by a strong legal framework? Is intellectual property strongly protected, strongly regulated in this country? Or do I risk coming up with a business idea which gets spread out of control and I lose my intellectual property rights? Right, moving on into tools that we can use to analyze information. As you know, information is the flow of energy through any organization. It's the bloodstream of any organization, and it is very important that we understand what information flow happens within our organization. When we implement lean management techniques into organizations, one of the first and most effective tools that we use, techniques that we use, is what is called the spaghetti diagram. It is also almost a fun thing to do, but this tool helps you pictorially demonstrate the movement of people, material, information flow that happens between different functions, different departments, different units, just to get something right. And you might very quickly realize that in certain spots within your office floor, you might need to change the carpets more often because they undergo very high traffic of people movement. Do we really need to operate in this way? Are the offices set up in the right layout? Do we need to relay our office? Do we need to break down our offices and make individual cells that work more compactly? Okay, so spaghetti diagrams help us very much visualize the flow of information. Could be a telephone call, could be an email, could be people moving, material movement, things like that. Right, information. Let us not also forget that organizations most probably have their own documented systems. They probably have a history that is documented already. They have annual reports, weekly reports, monthly reports, analytical reports. Let's review that documentation. As boring as it might seem, let's go through what documentation currently exists, and rather than rediscover from zero, have something to start working on. We might then decide to consider it or not consider it if we are not convinced of the quality of the documentation that's available. Again, One of the techniques that we home in on a lot when we are doing our analysis, we need to make sure that people know what they need to do. How well are business rules defined within the organization? Do our procedures, do our policies mix up the flow of decisions that need to be taken through the process? Do we have ambiguous rules that are subject to interpretation? Do we have vague rules that can be misused and help and head us on into a catastrophe? So let's make sure that we adopt a technique whereby when we're doing our process analysis, we make sure that rules are clearly defined, and if they are not defined, we make sure that we get a redefinition of those rules. Relationships are also very important, and we normally use scatter diagrams to identify relationships between parameters. To put a very simple case behind it, you might guess, let's take a simple daily example. Driving your car, driving to the office, listening to the music in the car while you drive. Does that affect your driving pattern? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe if you're listening to pop music, it might make you drive a bit more aggressive than if you're listening to some classical music. Yeah? Does the color of the car you drive affect the style of driving? Maybe yes, maybe not. Some insurance companies have heavier premiums on red cars. Why? Because red is combined with speed. And therefore, yeah, so maybe if I drive a red car, I might think I have a sports car, so I might drive more recklessly than I'm driving a dark colored car. Is there any relationship? The tighter the relationship, the tighter the points will be on a straight line pattern. The looser the relationship, the less of a straight line fit you might get in your scatter diagram. Dealing with data, we might have the risk of mixing up different categories of data with each other, with the result that we fog up the outcome, the results. We will not be able to distinguish certain trends and certain patterns. Therefore, we need to realize that we cannot treat everything equally. Sometimes we need to look at the information we have, at the data we have, identify clear-cut categories, and we stratify the data into layers, and we treat each layer separately in such a way that one does not influence the other. Right. Something that we promote a lot is the voice of the customer. The voice of the customer gives us information to our existence. We are there, we are in our organization because there's a customer who's willing to pay for our service or our product. Therefore, ignoring what the customer has to say to us is suicidal, to say the least. Customer feedback, the voice of the customer, is an extremely important information gathering tool. There are various ways how you can do that. Simple questionnaires, analyze dead on arrivals if you're providing a product, a functional product, analyze mean time between failures if you're providing electronic gadgets or functional items, monitor your complaints, your compliments as well, why not? Conduct mystery shopping exercises, conduct web surveys. Your website, is it friendly enough to interact with your customer? Public relations, interviews, social events, social media, so many things you can use today to capture that data. But capturing it alone is not good enough. We need to find ways how to analyze it, statistical systems, analytical systems that help us to extract the relevant information that will then be fed as knowledge into our organization to help us improve any potential improvements we can work on. Tools for analyzing the process. Some of the first and most obvious tools are: how much does my process cost? How much does each activity cost me? So activity-based costing is a very good way how to try to quantify the value, the cost what it is costing you within your organization to do an activity. Okay? Any process can be narrowed down into being influenced by 5 or 6 elements. We have probably all heard about the 5 M's, the fishbone, the Ishikawa, the root cause or cause and effect analysis. Okay? Any process variation can be challenged in view of one of those 5 elements. Have my materials changed? Has my information changed? Has my methodology changed? Anything wrong with the machinery, with the tools, with the equipment? Any new people on board? Are we lacking on training? Do we have different teams doing the same job and being different teams addressing the job in a different perspective? What about measurements? Are we measuring the right parameters? Are we measuring correctly with the right tools? Do we have the right tolerances set up into our process? What about the operating environment? Is the operating environment the right environment to do that process? Again, by environment, I refer to the physical environment, but also to the social environment. Another tool that comes in handy is a sensitivity analysis tool by basically asking, what if this happens? How will my process react? So if we drag scenarios to the extremes, we can anticipate potential failures that an extreme condition can put on our process. So what if analysis will consider different scenarios and test our process in such a way to see how robust it is in withstanding these variations. We might be all very familiar with the Deming Cycle. Anything we do, we have to plan it out, actually do it, monitor what we're doing, and based on that monitoring, we act and improve, provide feedback to the next level planning in order to help us do it better each and every time. Yeah, the plan, do, check, act is something that we might be doing naturally without even being aware of it. Yeah, why not do it also in our process analysis? Flowcharting is a very simplistic methodology for drawing out the process. Yeah? It is displaying the process in a very simplistic manner using very simple symbols. It is a good start. It is not very sensitive to specific complications, but it is a very good start to help us document the process, visualize the process, and identify duplication of work, lack of clarity in rules. Okay. Managing a process by the priority is a very important element, and that is where we resort to the 80-20 rule, the Pareto Analysis tool, also called vital few and the trivial many analysis, where we focus on what matters most. So again, a bit of a mathematical tool over here, whereby you quantify how big each of your issues is, and you quantify how much it contributes to the overall issue, and you focus on the 20% that give you 80% of the symptoms. Pareto analysis is a very useful tool. We use it very often in identifying priorities and reviewing priorities from time to time. Another simple and sometimes overlooked technique is the simple check sheet, putting tick marks, gates, whatever you want to call them, yeah, to quantify how big an issue is, where the priorities are. Every time an event happens, put a tick mark. Yeah? Count up how many ticks. You can identify immediately, very simplistically, where your priorities should lie without much scientific analysis put into it, but yet effective to give you an indication, a direction where to go to. Right, another tool to help us organize our line of thought, our processes, are what are called affinity diagrams. You might start with a brainstorming session, rendering out a number of what might look like random ideas, and you want to start making sense of those random ideas by categorizing them. You look at what ideas have been brought out and you start putting them underneath different groups. Once you have formed the groups that are related to each other, you give a title to each group. And then you have a number of parameters you need to consider underneath each heading. An important tool very much used by the aerospace and the automotive industry and that kind of sectors is the failure modes and effects analysis. It is again a prioritizing tool where you are looking at the different failure modes and their effects that they might have. So you are looking at potential problems that might happen and assessing how serious are they and how often do they occur. If it's a very serious problem, but it happens very infrequently, then it's one scenario. If it's a very serious problem and it happens very often, then you have a different scenario. We consider also a third element in FMEAs. How easily can we detect it? If it is a serious issue and it happens very infrequently and we have very strong detection techniques, then therefore it might not be the area of priority. So by rating each of the seriousness, the occurrence, and the detection capability, and plugging those into a very simplistic formula where you multiply each of those factors on a scale of 1 to 10, say, you can identify which are your key areas where you want to prioritize when it comes to process improvement. Some more tools that we find extremely effective are very simple tools such as the what we call the 5W2H. It might not make you the most popular person doing the job because you might find yourself asking so many questions just like kids would, but that's how kids learn. Yeah, so that's what we need to do as well. We have to ask, when are we doing this thing? What are we doing? Where are we doing it? Who is doing it? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? And how much is it costing us? What effort are we putting into it? Yeah. So asking these kind of questions help us identify many otherwise unknown parameters about our processes. If we would like to expand that a bit further, we can go into expanding the why into what is called the 5 whys approach. You know how the story goes. You walk in late in the morning to the office and your boss is angry. And he starts screaming and jumping 1 meter high. Why are you late this morning, Joe? He would say. And you say, oh, boss, I'm sorry I overslept this morning. Well, don't make sure you don't sleep again tomorrow. Make sure you're back on time tomorrow at the office. Yeah, boss. And you walk in, grumping and trying to settle into your desk. Next morning, what happens? Again, you happen to turn up late at the office. And the boss now is jumping 2 meters high and screaming at you, why are you late? I thought I told you yesterday not to be late. Oh, boss, you see, I overslept again. And of course, because the boss happened to be listening to this webinar, he learned about the 5 why techniques. So this time he says, haha, Joe is not going to fool me today. And he says, why did you sleep in, Joe? I say, you see, boss, my alarm clock, it did not go off this morning when it was intended to go off. I say, okay, why did not your alarm clock go off this morning? I said, the batteries inside, they went dry. And of course, the clock stopped halfway through the night, a few nights ago. Well, why didn't you get any new batteries? The boss would ask. And I would say to boss, well, you see, boss, since I am always working late because you keep me late at the office, by the time I get back home, the store is closed and I can never have the right time to buy new batteries, boss. So you see, boss, the problem is you actually, because you are keeping me working overtime and I don't have time to buy batteries. So it's your fault, boss, that I turn up late at work. And of course, the boss will probably fume up and kick you out of the office for the rest of the day. But that's a different story. Another very simple and very effective tool that we use is mind mapping, very graphical, whereby we put at the center what the scope is, and we start extracting out of that different elements we want to consider in our approach. I use mind mapping very much when we are writing reports, for example. Yeah, I have a report and I want to start structuring it. So I start putting in on the main stems, the main sections of the report, and from it extract further the subsections of that report. And then I number the sections and I say, okay, now I have a structure. Yeah, planning your holiday with the kids, that's a nightmare. So you need a very complicated mind map. You need to know exactly what you're going to do, where you're going to go, what to take with you, with whom you're going to go, where you're going to stay. Yeah, mind mapping helps you visualize what would otherwise be random thoughts lurking around in your head. A very powerful, and I repeat, a very powerful tool that is very much in use in normally high volume transaction activities, manufacturing and things like that, would be statistical process control. Now this is a bit of an elaborate technique. It is a scientific technique. It's part of the Six Sigma toolpacks. But it is, if you want to have a very high level description of SPC, statistical process control, it is all about controlling your process by monitoring the variation of the process. High variation means problem. Reducing the variation means making the process act more stably. Making the process work where you want it to work will make the process more accurate and centered. SPC is powerful because it will act as if it were your crystal ball. It can anticipate you problems before they occur. Okay, again, through Informa, we offer training on statistical process control, specifically on it. It is a technique that you need to learn, but it is extremely powerful if you are into high volume transactions, services, or industrial activities. Very well. Another tool that we use is Appreciative Enquiry, the 5 Ds this time. The classical way for interpreting the problem solving normally is to focus on the problem. With 5 Ds, we do a bit differently. We identify the problem, we define the problem, but then we look at discovering what are the other things that we do very well. How can we improve the other things we are strong on? How can we design a way how to get there? And what is the strategy to implement? How do we reach our destiny? How do we deliver our dream phase? Yeah. So 5D approach focuses on defining the problem, but then we focus on the stronger parts of our business activity. We can still use other techniques to solve the problem, but we also work on sustaining and building on our strengths. Another tool that deserves very high levels of attention is tools that help us analyze how people act together. In any process, many of the elements we mentioned, the machine, material, the environment, the measurement, the methodology, relatively speaking, those could be simple things to solve. But one of the elements is man, people. Man is a very complicated, very complex machine that deserves special treatment and has to be treated with care. It is a very vital part of a process, and therefore we need to consider ways and means how to manage that. Right, one of the first things that we like doing when we go into organizations is we observe, we see, we visualize what is happening. We go around the operations, we go around management, we go around customer services, we go around sales. We try to observe what is happening, yeah, and very objectively take notes on what we see. Sometimes, if allowed and if considered ethical and obviously with the right permissions, taking notes through a video camera could work wonders because the video camera does not lie. It helps expose issues that would otherwise go unnoticed. You can review over and over and over again. Of course, you need to use diligence over there. You need to ask for permissions, and obviously, rather than focus on people on the filming, you focus on the activity, on the works. Okay, so please be careful with using cameras, but we find them when we are allowed to use them by permission. We find videoing the activity to be very effective. Observing, videoing is all good stuff, but sometimes it is not enough to understand the pains, the efforts that people go through when they are actually doing the job. So again, if possible, if permissible, the technique that comes up next would be appreciative learning. Can I please do the job? Can I please do the next 5 transactions? Please let me experience myself the complications that might be faced by you guys while you are working in doing this job. Ask for the permission, see whether you are allowed to actually try in the job yourself. There's nothing wrong by getting your hands dirty, by getting the feel to the actual activity as it goes along. You will be surprised how different a process activity might feel if you had to do it yourself compared with observing, watching other people doing it. A tool that is very popular and very commonly applied is the Kaizen approach. As you might well know, Kaizen means patience, it means slow, it means gradual, and sometimes it is the right technique to adopt, whereby you go through a slow, gradual improvement, elemental improvement process. It might take some time, which means you might want to be alerted in case competition hits you by surprise. Are you going at the right rate? But Kaizen has been the fundamental behind total quality management, and of course, as you might understand, it is one of the most important tools in improvement processes. Right, another tool that is very useful in observing and improving the way people work is by improving the environment within which they work, and doing that through what is called the 5S technique. Okay, is a very simplistic, logical, but effective way of improving human interactions and human behaviors on our processes. 5S, I will not try to interpret the 5 Japanese words that you see written there, because my language is not very well polished, but I can translate them into the English equivalents. Yeah, 5S stands for 5 words that start in S in Japanese and in S in English. The first one being sort. Your work environment. You might have files all over your desk, underneath your desk, in the cabinets behind you. In your workshop, you might have all sorts of different bits and pieces of tools running around the workshop. Sort out what you need. What you don't need, get rid of, sell, give away, give to charity, auction, burn it, throw it away, recycle it, whatever. Remove what you don't need. By remove, I mean obviously in context. If you have your annual financial report, maybe it's not a good idea to throw it away, but maybe removing it in the sense archiving it where it should be, because you won't normally read that financial report every single day of your working year. Yeah. So what you need, keep. What you don't need, store in its appropriate position away from the activity area. Whatever you decided you need from the first S, from the sort, you need to find a place for it. And therefore the second word comes in, which is straighten. Straighten means find a place for the things that you need. Therefore, if I need to keep my pen readily available on my desk, rather than leave the pen running around anywhere, how about investing in a small pen holder, fixing it to the corner of my desk and writing on it pen. So if I need my pen, I know I can reach out to this little pen holder and I find my pen there. If my pen is not there, it means I'm using it. If I am not using it and my pen is there, someone must have nicked it. So no use looking for it, just go get another one. Yeah. So the first word, sort. Second word is straighten, finding a good place to store whatever you decided you needed. The third word is shine. Shine as in keep it in good order. If I have my pen, I don't want to have my pen running dry only to find out that when I'm going to sign off a very important contract, my pen is dry and I cannot sign my contract and lose a business opportunity. Therefore, what I need to do is make sure that my pen is well maintained. It has ink in its barrel. Fill it up every end of week. So next week you find it ready fueled up. Yeah. Check whether it is running dry so that you can buy a new one on your way to the office. Yeah. So shine is the third S, which means maintain, simple maintenance. I'm not telling you overhaul the whole machine. Yeah, just like what you would do with your car. Yes, you wouldn't overhaul the machine every week, but you might at least clean the front screen to enable you to see properly when you're driving at night. The fourth S is standardize. Whether we like it or not, human beings are very much procedure oriented. Therefore, standardizing the first three S's will normally work better when we come to maintaining the discipline. Yeah. So standardizing as in making it the rule every end of week before you go away, 10 minutes before you lock up your office, yes, clean up your desk, fill up your pen, archive any documents that you don't need any longer, and get it over and done with. And you know that every end of week you need to spend 5-10 minutes to do this job. Yeah, so make it a procedure, make it a standardized procedure. The last S is the most difficult, as you might anticipate. It is sustain. We might all be very enthusiastic about implementing this 5S technique, and we're all excited on doing 5S and marking up tools and painting colors to make things match. But as we all know, sometimes we find ourselves that we are too busy to maintain it, and then we leave it till the next week, and then next week we're more busy or we've forgotten and we don't do it, and it fizzles out into nothing. Some discipline needs to be put in here where we do, maybe we can set up a 5S walkthrough where you walk around like you would walk for health and safety issues, for quality issues. You do a 5S walk around where you just walk around and, you know, pull the cords a bit, you know, realign people. Hey, where are our 5S? Why is that pallet outside the parking lot? Put it back into place. It looks messy. Why is the red tool on the green machine? The red tool should be on the red tool. The green tool should be on the green machine. Put the tools where they belong. Yeah. So we need to maintain that discipline. Right. People like talking to each other. Again, like we mentioned earlier, improvement circles, quality circles, corrective action teams, and all that play a very important part. So please get people to talk together. They love talking together, and most of the time they bring out many more ideas than individual thought. People are precious assets. Let's get the right people doing the right job. Yeah, you don't want extra effort exerted by people doing tasks that are more mundane, that can be fit for different types of resources. Yes, so have a review of your type of people, their skill sets, their capabilities, and what they are doing. Are they really the right people to do that job? Should I shift around job responsibilities? Should I skill up their capabilities to enable them do a more flexible job? These are ways how we can keep our people motivated and rewarded, yeah, to avoid the demotivation factor that will normally put people into auto mode without caring much, without owning much the process. Yeah? So please do consider that people like developing their career. They like being given more empowerment to do things. Yes, more structure in their jobs, opportunities for promotions. Why not? Yeah, a little reward, maybe a tap on the back. They all help. Right. Last thing I'd like to very quickly talk about is risk assessment. Before taking decisions, we must make sure that we are very well aware of risks that are exposing our business, our decisions. And two tools that we like using very often, many people use, and very simple to use, is the classical risk matrix, yeah, where we, as we know, the risk is made up out of severity and likelihood, yeah. So we rate the severity, yeah, green, red, orange, whatever, amber, or rate it from 1 to 3, 1 to 5, whatever, and the likelihood, yeah. If I had to say that a big monster landing on this building could make a catastrophic disaster, that indicates that I have a problem there. The impact could be massive, yes, if a big monster from Mars had to land on this building. But the likelihood of this thing happening, maybe next to zero. So in essence, the risk is practically zero. So should I bother about the monster landing and making a disaster? Definitely not, yeah. Another tool that is very graphical and very effective to demonstrate is the force field analysis, where basically we focus on what the decision to be taken is, the plan for the change, the decision to move factory, to move office, to buy something, not to buy something, yeah. And we rate from one end the positive forces, let's say on a rate of 1 to 5, yeah. 1 is okay, 2 is better, 5 is excellent. Or -1 to -5. Yeah, -5 is definitely not. -1 is, yeah, it's not very comfortable. You know, we don't really like this idea. And you try to list out on either end of the force field analysis these elements that have influence on biasing this change. Add up the scores, and you try to minimize the forces against. Yeah, you bring in buy-in, reduce the negatives, and try to increase the positives, so that overall you get a positive force into implementing that change. It's a visual, it's a semi-subjective assessment, but it helps identify what the priority influences are when we come to implement some kind of change, yeah, in our processes. I try to give you there a very quick overview of some of the more common tools that are generally used in business process analysis and improvement initiatives. I will be very happy to dedicate the last couple of minutes on any questions you might have. So we will have a look at any questions that come in. We have a question here saying that how effective are these tools? Do we use them all? No, you don't use them all. You use the tool that best fits. Yes, as you all know, we might as well want to hang a wall picture and we use the plier to hammer in the nail in the wall. Well, it might get the job done, but it also might mean that you've got a swollen thumb at the end of the job. So using the wrong tool for the wrong job could hurt you. Using the right tool for the right job will make it easier. So you might have the plier, you might have the hammer in your toolbox, but if I want to nail the nail, I use the hammer because that is the appropriate tool. I might have a sledgehammer and I might have a small hammer in my toolbox. If I'm nailing a 1-inch nail, do I need a sledgehammer? So I need to adapt and use my tool according to the need that I have. Yeah. Right. Yes, you will have the material being displayed on the website and on YouTube channel, so look out for that. Okay. Some other questions that are coming in. 5S, how realistic is it in achieving this thing? Well, the magic thing behind it is in the last S, the sustain. How strong are you in sustaining? My catch is this, I am not the best organized person in the world, although I'm quite organized, but I am not the best organized person. Before I got into lean management and all these things, something like 15, 18 years ago, my office was a complete mess. It looked like what you would imagine, without any offense, an engineer's office. Yes, that's what it should look like. When I started getting familiarized with these lean techniques, one fine morning I walked into my office and I said, oh, hold on, Joe, I can't promote 5S if people are looking at my office. So I did a Tara 5S exercise across that weekend. People thought I resigned from the company because my office looked so clear, so well organized and everything. That was a few years back now. Today, is my office, well, different office now, but is my office still as 5S as it was 15 years ago? Let's say to the least that the discipline has gone deep inside me, and I would say maybe I am 80% there. There's always areas for improvement, but definitely it has become part of my DNA, and because I insist on sustaining it, I discipline myself to maintain. So yeah, I mean, it's all exciting at the beginning, it's all fun, it's exercises, it's marking things, it's painting things, it's labeling things. The trick behind it is sustaining it, yeah, keeping up the discipline. If need be, walk out of your office, have a walk around the place, and pull the attention of your executives to operate under the 5S environment that you have preached to them, that you have trained them, and all that. Right, there seems to be no more questions coming in from you. Well, we do hope that you have taken back to some information that is relevant to your organizations. We wish you well. If you would like to know more about any of these tools or opportunities for improvement, do check out Informa's websites. We do deliver these courses very regularly. We have some coming up in November and December and again in January, which talk about more elaborately about business process management and tools and techniques for solving. Cheerio, thanks a lot, goodbye.